Chapter 17. Beelzebub and his revolution. Everything in life is a matter of customs. A fornicator is an individual who has intensely accustomed his genital organs to copulate. Yet, if the same individual changes his custom of copulation to the custom of no copulation, then he transforms himself into a chaste person. We have as an example the astonishing case of Mary Magdalene, who was a famous prostitute. Mary Magdalene became the famous Saint Mary Magdalene, the repented prostitute. Mary Magdalene became the chaste disciple of Christ. Paul of Tarsus, the furious persecutor of Gnostics, received the sacred initiation after the event, which occurred to him on his way to Damascus. He left the custom of persecuting the Christians, and he adopted the Gnostic customs. Therefore, he became a Gnostic Christian prophet. An evil one can become a saint if he changes his customs of evil for the customs of a saint. After this preamble, let us enter into the interesting theme of our present chapter. In our present terrestrial period, Beelzebub, the ancient prince of demons, reached a degree of perversity that is impossible to describe with words. When any magician wished to call Beelzebub in the astral plane, he had to arm himself with very terrific courage in order to confront the most monstrous beast, which the innumerable cycles of historic evolution have known. The magician was pronouncing the sinister mantras of tenebrous evocations that are written as follows: Antia Rara Ra. These mantras are pronounced like this: Aenan Tai threat. Ra. Then, the name of Beelzebub was called 3 times. A breeze of death was cooling the atmosphere of the evocator, and the prince of demons was answering with a terrifying roar, which seemed to emerge from all of the caverns of the earth. Beelzebub was concurring to the call of such a courageous magician. Beelzebub's steps were like the trot of an infernal colt, and his presence, 1,000 times more terrible, 1,000 times more horrible than death itself. Woe unto the bold one who dared to call the prince of demons without being properly prepared. Woe unto such an intrepid one, because he died under the claws of the horrible beast. Yet, the very well-disciplined magician, firm as a warrior, was extending his right hand towards the prince of demons, and conjuring him with the following words: In the name of Jupiter, father of all gods, I conjure you, te vigos causalim. Then, the monster was remaining still. His presence was like a gigantic, long-haired gorilla. He was embracing his disciples or friends with his long tail while talking with them. His eyes were like a bull, his nose like a horse, his mouth like a mule, his feet and hands were enormous and horrible, and his body, as we have said, was hairy like the body of a gorilla. He was wearing upon his head a biretta, upon his shoulders was the black cape of the prince of demons, and a cord with 7 knots was around his waist. All of these garments were indicating that he was a prince of demons, a black magician of the 13th black initiation. When he was signing a pact with the black magicians, he was signing the following upon the document: Bel tengo mental lapitra, ykea ella anduv sidra veo genizerleds. Beelzebub knew how to momentarily abandon the astral plane in order to enter into the physical plane. This is how he was becoming visible and tangible for his daring evocators in the physical plane. He was making rich those who were signing pacts with him. Consequently, the soul of that evocator was remaining a slave of Beelzebub. He was giving them money, yet the evocator had to resolve to follow Beelzebub in a determined moment, in a determined day, hour, and minute. This was because Beelzebub was demanding the evocator's own life and the soul of his most beloved son. Beelzebub himself was disincarnating the evocator in order to take him and place him under his service. I know of a rich landholder who has signed a pact with another demon who is not Beelzebub. Every year a laborer mysteriously disappears from his farm. One little girl watched her mother precisely in the very moment in which she was disappearing, snatched by the mysterious hand of someone who was not seen. Consequently, this child remained an orphan. The black magicians can take their victims into the astral plane, even with their bodies of flesh and bones, in order to place them under their service within that plane. Many will say that the former statement is impossible, that the author of this book is getting peskier than a fly. Yet, I recommend to those people to study the initiatic novel of occultism by Crumheller Wiracocha, so they can learn about the history of the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail was in the physical plane, yet now it is within the astral plane. Also in the astral plane is the Temple of the Holy Grail, which was physical in the past, and also part of the mountain of Montserrat in Catalunya, Spain. This is what is called Jinn state. This chalice is filled with the blood of the Redeemer of the world, which Joseph of Arimathea collected when he was at the foot of the cross in Golgotha. We read in Crumheller's book how Commander Montero entered with his physical body into the authentic Rosicrucian temple of Chapultepec, Mexico. This temple is in a Jinn state, so Commander Montero entered into this temple with his body in a Jinn state. Dr. Rudolf Steiner, the great German doctor, said, "A physical body can enter into the internal worlds without losing its physical characteristics." Mario Rosso de Luna made beautiful studies about the Jinn lands. Don Mario Rosso de Luna died disappointed with the Theosophical Society. The Rosicross is one of 7 initiatic sanctuaries which are located in the astral plane. Yet, all of the Rosicrucian schools, which are presently known in this physical world, are false ever since such schools fell into the hands of Jav. The natives of America knew about the Jinn states in depth. Therefore, when the Spanish conquistadors arrived, they hid their most sacred temples within the astral plane. As a result, the Mayan mysteries were saved from the Spaniards' profanation. The Sanctuary of Mayan Mysteries is one of the 7 great occult sanctuaries which now remain within the astral plane. When a physical body is active within the astral plane, it remains subjected to the laws of that plane, without losing its physiological characteristics. I know about a fellow who robbed 2 gold bars from the profound cave of the Pregoneros, state of Merida, Venezuela. When the man in question went out of this cave, he felt that these 2 gold bars were moving in his hands, and simultaneously, a storm was unleashed. He then saw that his 2 gold bars had transformed into 2 horrible snakes. This man then threw them out of his hands and flew away in terror. What also can occur is that a disincarnated person can momentarily abandon the astral plane and penetrate into the physical plane. Such an individual becomes invisible for those persons from the astral plane, yet he remains tangible for the people of this physical world. In such a case, the disincarnated person remains momentarily subjected to the laws which command the physical plane, without his astral body losing its own characteristics. These cases are counted in thousands within the apparition archives of psychic societies. These are the apparitions of deceased persons, which the spiritists talk of. Nonetheless, they could never know how to explain them. Superficially, they say that these are materialization phenomena, and they fill them with millions of theories. They ignore that the soul can enter into the distinct departments of the kingdom. What is necessary is to know how to do it, as the magicians do. Therefore, the magician does not need spiritist mediums in order to perform these phenomena of practical magic. When magic is explained as it really is, then what occurs is that it seems to make no sense to fanatical people. They prefer to follow their world of illusions. I know the case of an evocator who called Beelzebub with a clavicle clue of Solomon, which is as follows: Agen tetragram vation estamilia maten ispares retrogrammaton orgaron irion. Erglion existion Ariona Omera brosin moim Messias solar Emmanuel Sabaoth Adonai. I praise thee and I invoke thee. When the evocator saw Beelzebub in the middle of the room, he became filled with infinite terror and did not dare make any pact with him, for he became tongue-tied. Beelzebub always had his cavern filled with weapons and seals in order to mark the astral bodies of his disciples. I, Samael Aun Weor, was always observing Beelzebub in the astral plane. I tried to gain his affection because what kept calling my attention was the overwhelming fact that he was irradiating love towards his friends. He was a very rare and unique case among his kind because I had never heard of a demon whose aura was irradiating a blue light, which is that of love. Certainly, he was always hurling terrible threats upon me. Yet, I always defeated him with my mantras, and thus I was accompanying him into his caverns within the astral plane. I reached even to the point of taking part in his feasts, pretending to be a black magician and even his comrade. This was in order to more closely study this personage. My intentions in the long run were to perform the greatest task in the cosmos, which was to take Beelzebub out from the Black Lodge and transform him into a disciple of the White Lodge. My disciples were considering this task to be something truly impossible. Beelzebub did not stop threatening me, nevertheless, in spite of everything, I did not dismay. Finally, there was a curious event which did assure my intentions. One night, I, along with Ch.17, invoked Beelzebub in the astral plane. Once he concurred to our call, we invited him to dinner. He accepted our invitation, and we went into a restaurant of the astral plane. As we already explained, the astral body also eats elements which are related to its organism. Thus, the astral world is almost similar to our own physical world. So, I asked food for Beelzebub, while I contented myself to drink a glass of water. When Beelzebub sat at the table, he took the biretta off from his head and began to eat in a gentleman-like manner. It was intriguing to see that type of gorilla eating at the table like a great lord. Some cellists who were in that place addressed me and told me that I was being disrespectful in bringing a demon into that place. As it was expected, they were looking at him with disgust, and soon they began to vacate the place. Notwithstanding, I answered them, "This is also a man and he deserves to be respected." Then Beelzebub took the floor and in a profoundly sad tone, he said, "Everybody despises me. The only one who does not despise me is my friend Samael Aun Weor." This was the astral experience that did encourage me to continue with my longed-for purpose, which was to take Beelzebub out from the Black Lodge and to make him a disciple of the White Fraternity. Some people would see the fact that the astral body can eat and drink as something impossible, because their unsound mysticism is always telling them that the astral body is something vague, a vaporous fluid, an intangible and non-material body. Considering they are only theorists, it does not occur to them to verify it. Let such ladies and gentlemen study Vivekananda's books, in order for them to be informed that the internal bodies, astral body, etc., are also material. This is why we, the Gnostics, say that nothing can exist, not even God, without the help of matter. So, the astral body is material, and it is a dense organism such as the physical body. The fact that matter in its last synthesis is reduced to energy does not deny its existence once in that state. If we cannot see it with our sense of sight, it is because it belongs to the fourth dimension. Our physical eyes will not serve for seeing the astral plane until we make them suitable for this purpose, or until we place ourselves into the astral plane with our physical body. Thus, the astral organism is as dense as the physical organism, yet it belongs to another department of the kingdom. The astral body is much more sensitive than the physical body. The astral organism is like a duplicate of the physical organism. As the physical body has to be nourished with food related to its nature, so does the astral body. The occultist utilizes the astral body for his studies and for his great investigations, because such a body is advantageously arranged over the physical body. Time and distance do not exist for the astral body, and what one learns through it remains immediately recorded within the consciousness of the being forever. Therefore, my dear reader, do not take the fact that I was having dinner with Beelzebub in the astral plane as something strange. Many times I had asked for the attention of Beelzebub's intimate in order for him to do something for his soul, but the answer of his intimate spirit was, "I cannot, he does not obey me. I have fought a lot, yet it is impossible." Beelzebub, as all black magicians from the school of Sodom, considers that the spirit is inferior and the soul is superior. This is because they say that the soul is more psychic. So, Beelzebub, as well as the disciples from the school of Sodom, were convinced that the guardian of the threshold was their real being. Precisely, this is why Beelzebub did not listen to his intimate. Beelzebub ignored that he was in evil. He was furiously attacking the white magicians and believing them to be perverse. He was feeling himself to be a saint and good and considered the white magicians to be demons. He was ignoring our Gnostic principle, which states, one has a soul, and one is a spirit. The Testament of Learning says, "Before the false dawn came over this earth, those who survived the hurricane and the storm gave praise to the innermost, and to them appeared the heralds of the dawn." The intimate or innermost is our internal sun. Thus, the soul who removes itself from its intimate falls into the abyss. The spirit is our real being. The soul who removes itself from its own spirit is disintegrated. This is the second death. As a result of the words that Beelzebub uttered in the middle of that dinner, I, filled with enthusiasm, performed another experiment. I invoked him anew within the astral plane. Once Beelzebub attended my call, I politely invited him to have some drinks with me. Beelzebub happily and joyfully accepted my invitation. While Beelzebub and I were walking in the astral plane, I was changing Beelzebub's own vibration. Finally, I succeeded and I removed him out of the astral plane and took him into the most divine plane of consciousness of the cosmos. This most divine plane of the cosmos is named the Pass-Not Ring, in the first volume of the Secret Doctrine by the Master Blavatsky. If we consider the cosmos as a great tree with its roots in the absolute, then these roots will be the Pass-Not Ring, because no one can pass that plane, not even the most great gods of the cosmos can pass beyond that ring. Beelzebub was really overwhelmed before the tremendous luminosity of that ineffable region. Its beauty and happiness is indescribable. Yet, he felt terror because for 4 eternities Beelzebub was living within the darkness of the tenebrous caverns. When seeing the light he was feeling fear, and so with a hoarse voice he uttered, "This is unceasingly terrifying," I responded. "More terrifying is the darkness in which you live." Then, walking through this plane we passed in front of a house. "Can I enter?" he asked me, and I answered him affirmatively. Immediately we entered and stayed inside for a while. Really, everything was new for Beelzebub. He was feeling discontent because he was accustomed to living among the veiled prophets, and the tremendous luminosity of that plane was horrifyingly bothering him. After this interval of light, I took him again to the other extreme, into the terrible darkness of the Avicii, hell, of our earth, where one does not see anything but pieces of souls in the state of disintegration. There you find souls of prostitutes, who by means of too much copulation became totally separated from their intimate. Now, while lying down upon their filthy beds, they are disintegrating themselves like candles, melting with the fire of their passion. We found their souls of demons who were nothing else but pieces. "Here I feel a little bit better," said Beelzebub to me. I answered him, "You have to accustom yourself to the light." He then stated, "It is very hard to do so because I have been living within the darkness for a very long time. When showing him the pieces of souls, I warned him, "Here is where you will end up if you continue with your evilness." Then after, I took him again into his astral plane. Despite the fact that I was not content with the former ordeal, I did not dismay. I understood that he had the guardian of the threshold within his internal bodies. As a logical fact, in spite of the promising hopes that I was observing in Beelzebub, that guardian, which is so respected by the black magicians, was totally enslaving him. Nevertheless, Beelzebub did not get furious against the light only annoyed him. He was suffering greatly in the astral plane because all the spiritualists were turning up their nose at him, and he was very discouraged with his people. There was always the same despot behind the altar commanding his temple. He was always around the same vices, and those vices had already made of him a gorilla, a filthy beast. I, Samael Aun Weor, understood all of this. Therefore, I did not dismay, especially when he was trying to feel affection for me and was considering me his best friend. Thus, I performed a third experiment. This one was really the decisive one. I took Beelzebub into the pass-not ring for a second time. While there, I invoked for him his best and very ancient friends from the epoch of Saturn. These friends of his are now in this present time luminous lords of the mind, lords of the light. Filled with pain, they hugged Beelzebub. One of them said to him, "I never believed to reach the point of seeing you in this state." Then, Beelzebub answered, "You see how far I went." In that plane, Beelzebub seemed to be something like a gorilla from the African jungle within an elegant hail of Paris. Nevertheless, when Beelzebub recognized his most beloved friends, he was appalled within the depth of his soul and totally comprehended how he went astray. This was Beelzebub, the simpatico and handsome man of Arcadia. If it was not for the taverns, he would not have known the horrifying black magician who misguided him. Then, I asked permission to the masters of that luminous plane to leave Beelzebub in that luminous region for some time. The masters joyfully agreed with my petition, with the condition that I constantly visit him. We then together made a chain of love around Beelzebub, inundating him with our love and filling him with our best atoms, saturating him with light and splendor. I was constantly visiting Beelzebub. He was always sad, since he was the only gorilla within that plane of gods. All of the beings of that region were looking at him with curiosity, and his ancient friends of the Saturnine period were advising and helping him. So, Beelzebub was accustoming himself little by little to the light, and he was feeling remorse in the bottom of his soul for the lost time. He felt shame when in front of his best friends, and he longed for personal improvement. Therefore, we helped him by temporarily uniting him with his internal God, with his own intimate, and a supreme effort was made by his Glorian in order to call his soul to the union with his intimate. When reaching this part of our book, it will be rare for the occultists to hear about the Glorian. In reality, the Glorian is nothing else but the ray from where the intimate spirit emanated. Thus, the Glorian is substance, yet it is not spirit, neither matter. The Glorian is the great breath that is profoundly unknowable to itself. It is a breath from the Absolute, one of the many breaths from the Great Breath. The Glorian is the atmic thread of the Hindus. It is the Absolute within us, our own individual ray, the whole of our real being made in glory. The soul aspires for the union with his intimate, and the intimate aspires for the union with his Glorian. The diocese of our Glorian is the Turk chair of our organism. This Turk chair is formed by the cervical vertebrae of our spinal column. Here is where the Glorian has its silver atoms. When Beelzebub became united with his Glorian, the white light of the Glorian was shining with all of its splendor in that part of Beelzebub's astral organism. This momentary fusion of Beelzebub with his intimate took away from him that horrifying appearance of a gorilla. Dressed with the vestures of his intimate, he assumed the shape of that simpatico young man of Arcadia. We must not forget that the atoms of the Glorian are of silver, and that the Holy Grail is of silver and not of gold, as some Rosicrucians suppose. Hence, the chalice, which the initiates of the god Sirius carry over the hood of their forehead, is of silver. Any Chela who visits the transcended church of the star Sirius will convince himself of my affirmation. A great interior revolution was taking place within Beelzebub. So, one night, the most quiet and the most silent night, I made some experiments of theurgy which were really definitive. I projected for Beelzebub upon the cosmic scenario some scenes of the Akashic records. The primeval epics from the Saturnine period were appearing, epics in which Beelzebub still was a good and simple man, when he still did not have vices, when he still was not a friend of brothels or taverns. All of those scenes were moving themselves in a successive order. Beelzebub was silently contemplating them. Then after, the taverns, the little parties, the social nights, and the brothels with their orgies appeared. Beelzebub, filled with a terrible internal emotion, was contemplating those very ancient scenes, and he was remembering his errors. He was before the primeval causes, which had conduced him towards his present state. A true revolution of Beelzebub was in activity. Beelzebub was revolutionizing against hatred, against selfishness, against vices, against fornication, against anger, against crime, etc., etc. Suddenly, something dreadful and horrifying emerged from within that scene. It was a being who was an abominable demon, dressed in a black tunic and who was wearing in his ears 2 rings. The eyes of such a demon were protruding outwardly, and an atmosphere of profound darkness was enveloping him. Beelzebub remained astonished when contemplating him, since he was his very ancient master. He was that horrifying black magician who, with his marvelous clues, was always making him triumphant in the vice of gambling. He was that horrifying demon who leads him towards the first black initiation. This demon was the one who enslaved Beelzebub to the guardian of the threshold in that very ancient tenebrous temple, where Beelzebub passed the first ritual. It is the same ritual which in this day and age the black magicians pass through. This sinister personage approached Beelzebub smiling in order to greet him. Beelzebub, as when one is attracted by a hypnotic spell, wanted to approach him in order to return the greetings. Yet he stopped, and a gesture of rebellion emerged from within the bottom of his soul. Heroically he exclaimed, "No, I do not greet you, I do not want anything from you, since you are responsible for me being in this state." Then, the sinister personage, with a very hoarse voice, which seemed to emerge from within the bottom of the centuries and from within the tenebrous caverns, answered, "Is this the payment which you give for my services? Have you already forgotten my sacrifices? Have you already forgotten the teachings that I gave you? You are allowing yourself to be guided on the bad path." Yet, filled with energy, Beelzebub answered, "I do not want to listen to you, since you are responsible for my being in this state. So, I believe I did pay you for the granted favors." Then, I conjured this sinister personage in order for him to withdraw. Hence, the black magician withdrew with his profound darkness. He seemed to sink himself into the abyss. This was an ordeal for Beelzebub, and he emerged successful in this ordeal. Beelzebub revolutionized himself against black magic. A gesture of rebellion was bursting within the bottom of his soul. After having projected these Akashic records in the atmosphere for the sake of Beelzebub, we, the masters and my disciples, performed chains of love together in order to irradiate light to Beelzebub. Afterwards, I projected in the form of pictures the fate which was awaiting for him if he would still follow the black path. Pictures were appearing of Beelzebub happy in the taverns and delivering himself to all the vices of the earth. Finally, the setting of the cosmic night was appearing, and all the seas overflowed over the earth. Everything was in ruins and ice. There, thrown away on a shore, was a piece of the head and the chest and arms of the one who had been Beelzebub in the past. Once the former picture concluded, I then told him, Lo and behold the doom which is awaiting for you, if you keep following the black path. Afterwards, I projected the pictures of the fate which was awaiting for him if he would follow the path of white magic. In these pictures Beelzebub was shown already united with his intimate, dressed in the tunic of mastery with its long cape of a hierophant, and with his scepter of power. A luminous garden appeared, and Beelzebub was treading upon this garden as an omnipotent and heavenly god. I told him, this is the providence which awaits for you, if you follow the path of white magic. Thus, resolve yourself now. Do you follow white magic or do you continue on the black path? Beelzebub's firm answer was, I stay with white magic. Then, Beelzebub fell down on his knees weeping as when a child weeps. Raising his eyes towards heaven he closed his hands together over his chest, and among tears and sobs, he prayed to heaven. He was a repented demon. His horns were shining upon his forehead as if they already wanted to vanish with the light. The major brethren were hugging him with tears in their eyes. All of them were rejoicing amongst themselves while a triumphal and delectable march with its ineffable melodies played in the starry heavens of Urania. I say unto you that likewise joy shall be in heaven over one sinner that repenteth, more than over 99 just persons, which need no repentance. Luke 15 verse 7. Then, I kneeled and prostrated myself before the most powerful hierarch of the cosmos, who is called by the Tibetans, the Mother of Mercy, or the Melodious Voice Eo. He is the only begotten, the great universal verb of life, whose body is all of the sounds which are played in the infinite. His beauty is ineffable. He bears a crown with 3 points, and the Elohim carries his very long cape. They carry the long train of his cape. So, I begged the only begotten to have Beelzebub close to him, in order for him to adjust Beelzebub's kundalini. Beelzebub's kundalini was flowing downwards, forming the tail, kundartiguator, of the demon. Now, the only begotten's duty was to raise Beelzebub's kundalini upwards, towards his head, in order to convert him into an angel. The Master, the only begotten, accepted my supplication, and within that plane of diamantine light, he placed Beelzebub within a resplendent garden, and gave him a cosmic book for him to study. He instructed him in the path of light and filled him with atoms of wisdom. Later on, I made Beelzebub revive the whole of his life throughout all of the 4 great cosmic periods, and I showed him the beautiful fate, which was awaiting for him if he was going to follow the luminous path. When Beelzebub saw himself already converted into a hierarch of the future, he asked me, would this be soon? I answered him affirmatively. Afterwards, when he finished reviving all of these scenes, he then arrived before the only Son, only begotten, saying, I come with my soul transformed. The Master then continued helping him, and his kundalini arose. Thus, the tail, kundartiguator, of the demon disappeared from him. Nonetheless, the horns were still over his forehead, because these horns belonged to the guardian of the threshold and he was closely fused with the guardian of the threshold. This internal beast was a terrible obstacle for his evolution. It was necessary to cast this beast out from him in order to liberate him from this internal monster, which held him in bondage for innumerable ages. That internal monster had taken possession of his will, of his thought, of his consciousness, of everything. Therefore, the necessity of expelling him out from his own being, in order to perform a fast internal progress, was peremptory. This then was the moment when I took him into the astral plane in order to submit him to the first initiatic ordeal, through which anyone who wants to reach the initiation has to irremediably pass through. This is the ordeal of the guardian of the threshold. In this ordeal, when we invoke this monster, he comes out from within ourselves and he threateningly thrusts himself against us. Beelzebub had to invoke his own guardian many times. Finally, a horrifying breeze blew everywhere and then, in a dreadful and threatening way, the specter of the threshold appeared. That creature was a giant, about 3 meters in stature, and his body had 2 meters of thickness. He had the appearance of a monstrous gorilla with a flat and round face, 2 horns, and protruding eyes. Beelzebub had fortified this monster throughout the ages. Now, Beelzebub did not have any other choice but to fight him. Therefore, Beelzebub courageously thrust himself over the monster and subsequently defeated him. This was the monster which gave Beelzebub that horrifying appearance of gorilla. This was the beast of the threshold. Hence, a dry noise resounded within space, which is different than the metallic sound produced in similar cases with our present disciples. This is because Beelzebub is from another world period. Afterwards, Beelzebub was welcomed within the children's hall with a great festivity and delectable music, and so, he remained converted into a disciple of the major brethren. The masters gave him a symbolic cup of silver. After Beelzebub passed through this first ordeal, I then took him again to the Only Begotten, in order for the Only Begotten to keep helping him. The horns disappeared from the forehead of Beelzebub, because these horns belonged to his internal beast, to the guardian of threshold, which is called by the Rosicrucians from the school of Sodom, the guardian of their chamber, and also, the guardian of their sanctum. The monstrous figure of the gorilla also disappeared from Beelzebub, because that figure was not his own, but the figure of the guardian of the threshold, which is called by the Rosicrucians from the school of Sodom, the guardian of their consciousness. Beelzebub beautified himself. Nevertheless, he now had to accomplish that saying of the Master, "Render therefore unto Caesar the things which are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God's." Matthew 22 verse 21. Beelzebub had to return to the black magicians all the articles which he had from them, the biretta, the 7-knotted cord, and the cape of the prince of demons. Also, he had to erase his name from the book where it was written. When reaching this part of our present chapter, we have to give some explanations about this matter, because many readers would think it strange that we talk about books within the astral world. And it is because people are accustomed to think that the astral world is a vague, fluid, vaporous, intangible, immaterial, etc. world. We, the Gnostics, are essentially realistic, and we have reached the conclusion that nothing can exist, not even God, without the help of matter, even though what is matter is something absolutely unknown to the so-called materialistic schools. Such schools are nothing else but a theoretical cage of parrots, because in reality these know-it-alls of materialism truly do not know anything else but the most gross states of matter. For example, what do they know about occult chemistry, the anatomy and ultrabiology of the internal bodies of the human being? Materialistic skepticism is the result of a cerebral dementia. This has already been confirmed by the psychiatric doctors of Paris when they were analyzing the brain of an existentialist. In reality, within each normal human being, there exists a true, natural mystic who is without any type of aberration. This is because the materialistic, as well as the spiritualistic theories are equally filled with aberrations and fantasies. Therefore, we, the Gnostics, are not spiritualists, neither materialists, but we are realists. We deeply know about the infinite manifestations of matter and the spirit, and we know that the fundamental base of the being is not spirit neither matter. The glorian is a substance which gives its substance to itself, yet it is not spirit or matter. Therefore, when we affirm that Beelzebub had to erase his name from the book of a temple, we speak with much authority as when we say that we have to erase a name from a physical material book. If material objects exist in this physical plane, likewise material solid objects exist within the astral region, because the astral plane is as material as the physical plane. Moreover, we can visit the astral plane any time we want by penetrating within it with our physical body of flesh and bones, dressed and prepared as if we are going on the street for a walk. Books of astral matter exist within every temple of black magic. The names of its affiliates are written in these books. Whenever a black magician withdraws from a temple of black magic, he must always erase his name from the book where it is written. Also, he has to return all of the articles to their owners, render therefore unto Caesar the things which are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God's. Matthew 22 verse 21. So, after the ordeal of the guardian of the threshold, Beelzebub presented himself to his tenebrous temple in order to erase his name from the book where it was written. It was an enormous, gigantic temple of black magic. The great hierarch of the temple was behind the altar. When he saw Beelzebub, impatiently and irritably he exclaimed, "You finally remember to come. Since you are the one who directs this temple, why do you delay so much in coming?" Then Beelzebub answered with an energetic tone, "I do not belong to this temple anymore. I am now following the path of white magic." Afterwards, he took the biretta from his head and the cord from his waist and thrust them over the altar while saying, "There, I leave these things to you. I do not need them anymore, since now I am of the White Lodge." Then he added, "Give me the book so I can erase my name from it." Then the tenebrous priest answered in a despotic way, "Look for the book yourself, I will not give myself that duty." Thus, Beelzebub looked for the book, and then after, he erased his name and departed from the temple with a firm and triumphal step. Subsequently, we directed ourselves to a certain tenebrous cavern, where he had to deliver the cape of the Prince of Demons. When Beelzebub entered into the black cavern, he spoke the following, "I come to deliver this cape that does not belong to me anymore, because I am now a disciple of the White Lodge." And so he thrust the cape towards them. Beelzebub departed from that cavern, while the black magicians from that cavern were insulting him. Once out of that cavern, we directed ourselves to Beelzebub's own cavern. Here, innumerable weapons and seals of black magic were shown. Beelzebub burnt all of these with the salamanders of fire. This is how, my beloved reader, the former prince of demons, Beelzebub, was liberated from black magic. Beelzebub continued abiding within the light of the pass-not ring, and the only Son, begotten, kept teaching him. Some days after, the ordeal of the great guardian of the threshold of the world was presented to him. This is the second ordeal, which every disciple must pass through. Beelzebub courageously confronted the second guardian. Another party was celebrated in another temple, and another symbolic cup of silver was delivered to him. When the second ordeal is passed, then another ordeal comes in order to burn with fire the residue, which remains within the disciple. Beelzebub entered within the hail of fire, and he courageously sustained himself within the flames. This is the third ordeal, and Beelzebub passed it very well. The fire burnt all of the larvae of his astral body, thus he remained clean. Later on, he passed through the 4 ordeals and proved that he was capable, even capable to kiss the whip of the executioner. These ordeals are the ordeal of earth, fire, water, and air. Beelzebub courageously passed through these 4 ordeals. Then he received the cape of Chela, disciple of the White Lodge, and he dressed himself with a purple tunic. Beelzebub became a disciple of the White Lodge, and he totally sanctified himself. For such a motive, the great brethren celebrated with a grand cosmic party. The divine rabbi of Galilee received him with open arms, and the divine rabbi congratulated me, Samael Aun Weor, because of my triumph. This event remains written in the book of the 24 elders, and the cosmos, the whole of it, has been shaken. This is the greatest event of cosmic evolution because I have heard about fallen angels, yet I have never heard of a repented demon. So, Beelzebub delivered himself to healing sick people and to taking them by night in their astral bodies into the temple of Alden for their healing. He delivered himself to goodness, to righteousness, and to justice. He changed his demonic customs for the customs of a saint, and hence he became a saint. Therefore, the main link, which was Beelzebub, was lost and panic sprouted within the Black Lodge. The disciple's conductor wears a tunic and hood of a black color because he is an authentic black magician. Among the masters of the White Lodge, not one wears a black hood. The Master Zanoni, White Master, dresses in a black tunic and wears a distinguished mantle of the same color, but never a black hood. This is because the black hood is only for black magicians. Thus, having again reached the bottom of the temple, I am led towards the center of the temple. Then, an official places a great cross over my head while I kneel, and 3 bell strokes resound in some other part of the temple. From the east of the temple, a master with a purple tunic who carries a great Egyptian cross approaches me. He holds this cross over my head instead of the other cross, while other officials who are standing next to me say, "Under the cross of immortality and eternal life, you are blessed." Within the halls of the authentic white Gnostic initiation, a master never wears a purple or red tunic, since these colors are only used by the hierarchies of the Black Lodge. In the white initiation, the disciple throws upon his shoulders an enormous and heavy cross of wood. This signifies that the disciple has already started his own via crucis through the 9 arcades. The weight of the cross differs very much, as this weight depends upon the karma of each person. Sometimes the disciple cannot bear the weight of his cross, then the Cyrenean has to help him. The vowels E, U grants the disciple the power of bearing his cross when it is very heavy. Thus, the cross over the shoulders is white magic. Yet, the cross over the head is black magic. Christ did not bear his cross over his head, but over his shoulders. The cross symbolizes matter. Hence, to bear the cross over the head signifies to resolve oneself to live under matter, under the world. This is why the black magician says, "Under the cross of immortality and eternal life, you are blessed." The white magician says, "Over the cross I am." The cross over the head is carried by the pontiffs on their mitres. No white magician carries the cross over his head, but over his shoulders, as was demonstrated by the divine Redeemer. Thus, we, the Gnostics, are not under the cross, but over the cross. The Gnostic has to bite a certain figure in the first initiation. Before entering into this first initiation, he has already received the authentic lost word, which has never been written. The verbal tests are very strict in order to receive the initiation. The black magician does not care for morality. Once the Chela, white neophyte, triumphantly passes the white initiation, a celebration occurs. In the black ceremony, the disciple receives from a black magician, who is dressed in yellow, a series of teachings that are utilized in order to become invisible and to make others invisible. We will talk about this in the next chapter, Nirvana. As we have already stated, all of these teachings came from Atlantis. In Atlantis, the human beings were utilizing the sexual forces in order to inflict grave damage. This is how Orhuarpa, a black magician, was forming monsters with his mind that later he physically materialized. He fed them blood to keep them alive, and he was casting these monsters upon his defenseless victims whenever he wished to do so. The Atlantean humanity was clairvoyant and they marvelously managed to handle the cosmic forces. A very important sanctuary existed in that epoch. This sanctuary was named the Sanctuary of Vulcan. The guardians of this sanctuary had Ahriman, another black magician, and his legions under their control, so these black magicians could not freely work on our planet. The atoms of Ahriman eventually damaged the clairvoyance of the human being. This is how our humanity remains enslaved by the illusion of this physical world. Nevertheless, there was in Atlantis a great college of initiates. When the black magicians were attempting damage against them, then the evil ones were killed by the sword of justice. The lords of Mercury gave the mind to the human being in order for him to think, and not for him to use it for destructive purposes, as did Orhuarpa. When Orhuarpa saw that people were worshipping him as a god, he armed a powerful army and marched against Tallinn, the city of the 7 gates of massive gold, where the white magicians from Atlantis reigned. During the day, Orhuarpa was fighting dressed in steel, with shield, helmet, casque, and sword. Yet, during the night, he was unleashing his beasts with his witchcraft. They were in the form of wolves and they were destroying his enemies. This is how he captured Tallinn, the city with the 7 gates of massive gold. He became Emperor of Atlantis, thus establishing the cult of the Tenebrous Sun. This is how events occurred then. The Master Mona reincarnated. He reunited an army of soldiers and marched against Orhuarpa. Orhuarpa cast his ferocious beasts against the Master Mona, but the Master was dissolving them with his luminous powers. Master Moria, with the edge of his sword, captured Tallinn, the city with the 7 gates of massive gold, and all of the soldiers of Orhuarpa fell under the sword of the forces of light. When Orhuarpa saw that he had lost, he enclosed himself within a tower and died burning in it, because Master Mona's soldiers set fire to that tower. Unfortunately, events did not end here. Orhuarpa immediately reincarnated again, and when he was old enough, he reunited his army of warriors and sorcerers and marched against Tallinn, but he could not capture the city again. So, he established his own throne against the other throne. Then, the 4 thrones, deities, said to the White Emperor Noah, leave from this land and pass to the Gobi Desert, where you will find dry land, because God will sink this land. Noah obeyed and departed with all his people towards the Gobi Desert. The people of Noenra were the primitive Semite tribes who were following the path of white magic. Thus, Orhuarpa remained chief and lord of Atlantis. Sometime after the departure of the people of Israel, certain dangerous igneous manifestations started to appear in Atlantis. This was because the use of the sexual forces, when utilized for black magic, made the fire of the dormant volcanoes enter into activity. The sexual forces have an intimate relationship with all the forces of nature, because the sexual forces reside not only in our sexual organs, but also in all of our cells and, moreover, within each atom of the cosmos. The sexual force is the cause of electricity. It is logical then that the dormant volcanoes would enter into activity, since the volcanoes were intimately related with the black magicians by means of the sexual energy. During great earthquakes, Atlantis sank with all of its black magicians into the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. All of the native tribes from the continent of America are Atlantean remnants. These tribes preserved many practices of black magic, which were derived from the Atlanteans. In America, there are some who make dolls with wax and then bury them with pins. This is how they empower their imagination and concentrate their minds on their victims. There are others who utilize the sexual forces for destructive purposes. The whole of this originated in Atlantis. The Arhuacos Indians, from the Sierra Nevada of Santa Marta, Colombia, burned a whole town named Dibuya, by utilizing the elementals of fire, which they call animes. I met a humble old woman in the small town of Santa Cruz de Mora, state of Merida, who made marvels with the elementals of nature. When she was young, she married an Indian. Her husband took her to his tribe into the jungle. She tells many strange things about this tribe. She says that during the day, the Indians abandon their homes, and during the night all of them arrive with the shape of animals, yet, when they are within their huts, they take the human shape again. A certain day her husband took leave from her and said that he was going to die in the jungle, since these Indians go into the jungle in order to die. He gave her an amulet and said, "I deliver this keepsake to you so you can ask to it whatever you wish when you are needy." This is how the old woman made marvels in the town of Santa Cruz. She asked this amulet whatever she wished for. Money, wine, jewels, liquors, perfumes, etc., etc. were coming to her as if by magic. People who were robbed did nothing more but consult her. At once she was asking the amulet for the robbed object. Then, the object was carried by invisible hands and arrived into her hands, and so everybody was recovering their lost things. Unfortunately, these marvels ended for the old woman when she had the weakness of confessing this to a priest, who took this marvelous talisman away from her. The performance of these marvels are nothing fantastical or rare, since they are simply made with the elementals of nature. The book by Mr. Franz Hartmann entitled The Elementals widely refers to these things. The whole of this knowledge comes from Atlantis. The elementals serve for good as well as for evil. The Atlanteans utilized the elementals for evil. Chapter 15. Nirvana. From the Gobi Desert, the Israelite tribes emigrated to the west in order to form the Aryan root race. This is represented in the book of Exodus, in the story of the emigration of Israel, when they were coming out from the land of Egypt towards the promised land. Enormous caravans of human beings, who were commanded by the masters of major mysteries, came away from the drowning Atlantis towards the Gobi Desert. Afterwards, they emigrated to the west in order to cross themselves with some Western races, in order to form our present Aryan root race. The captains of the biblical Exodus were the same masters of major mysteries. They were profoundly venerated by humanity, therefore no one dared to disobey their sacred commands. Moses remained 40 years in the wilderness, that is to say, the primeval Israelites remained 40 years in the wilderness. They built the Ark of Alliance, they established the mysteries of Levi, and they worshipped Jehovah. The mysteries of the 7 sanctuaries emigrated towards the west. Under the light of these sanctuaries is how the Magus Persia, the Riches India, Chaldea, Egypt, Hellenic Greece, etc., all flourished. This occult wisdom illuminated Solon, Pythagoras, Heraclitus, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Buddha, etc. The most powerful civilizations from the past flourished under the light of the sacred mysteries. Nonetheless, the human being was developing the intellect and it withdrew him from the internal worlds. When the human being lost his clairvoyance, then he knew fear. Fear did not exist in the past, because the human being was contemplating the action of the gods and he was seeing the unraveling of all things. The human being removed himself from the great light, now he has to return into the great light. The Buddhists tell us that when the human being is liberated from the wheel of birth and death, then he enters into the ineffable joy of nirvana. We, the Gnostics, know that Christ is a Nirmanakya, a being who renounced nirvana in order to come to save this humanity. The Book of the Dead says, "I am the sacred crocodile Sebek. I am the flame with 3 wicks, and my wicks are immortal. I enter the region of Sikkim, I enter into the region of the flames which have defeated my adversaries." This region of Sikkim, the region of the flames, is the ineffable joy of nirvana. A Dayan Chohan is one who has already abandoned the 4 bodies of sin, which are the physical, astral, mental and causal bodies. A Dayan Chohan only acts with his diamond soul. He has already liberated himself from Maya, illusion, thus, he lives happily in nirvana. The sacred crocodile is the intimate. The intimate is the flame with 3 immortal wicks. These 3 wicks are the intimate's diamond soul, his igneous mind and Atman, his own spiritual body. Nirvana is a region of nature where the ineffable happiness of the fire reigns. The nirvanic plane has 7 subplanes. A resplendent hall exists in each one of these 7 subplanes of nirvanic matter, where the Nirmanakas study their mysteries. This is why they call their subplanes halls, and not merely subplanes, as the Theosophists do. The Nirvanis say, we are in the first hall of nirvana, or in the second hail of nirvana, or in the third, or in the fourth, or fifth, or sixth, or in the 7th hail of nirvana. To describe the ineffable joy of nirvana is impossible. There, the music of the spheres reigns and the soul is enchanted within a state of bliss, which is impossible to describe with words. The inhabitants of the superior hail of nirvana use diamond tunics and they carry mantles of distinction over their heads, which fall to their feet. We can visit nirvana with our astral body. The yogis from India, while in the state of samadhi, visit nirvana with their mental body or causal body. However, to pretend to visit nirvana with black magic procedures is the breaking point of madness. The Gnostic knows how to enter into nirvana by utilizing the powers of his intimate. When the Gnostic wants to visit nirvana, he does the following. First, he leaves his physical body and departs in his astral body. Second, when he is already out of his physical body, then he prays to his intimate as follows: Father of mine, take me to nirvana. Then, the intimate transports the soul of the Gnostic towards the ineffable joys of nirvana. The Gnostic procedure in order to depart in the astral body is very simple. The Gnostic takes advantage of the natural state of transition between vigil and dream in order to leave his physical body. This is done with much naturalness, as when one is walking out of his home. The individual simply pronounces the mantra Rusty, and in the moment when he is getting drowsy, he gets out of his bed, not with the mind, nor the imagination, but as if he is really doing it with his body of flesh and bones. Hence, the physical body remains within the bed. The mantra is pronounced many times like this: RRRRRUUUUUSSSSSSSTI. The Gnostics know very well that they must always save their sexual force, because the Kundalini awakens with the sexual force. The mantra RA helps in the awakening of the Kundalini, but it is necessary to know how. This is ignored by the black magicians of the school of Sodom. These black magicians believe that by pronouncing RAMA, while standing on their feet every morning and while taking various inhalations of air, they will purify themselves. What they only demonstrate with this is their complete ignorance regarding the wisdom of the Egyptians. We, the ancient Egyptians, pronounce the mantra RA while in the Egyptian position, which is as follows. Our knees are on the ground, the palms of our hands are on the ground and touching each other by the thumbs. Then, our head rests upon the back of our hands. In this position, one pronounces many times the mantra like this: RRRRRRAAAAA. As we have already stated in the previous chapter, in the black ceremony, the ancient black magicians, while enveloped within a cloud, were physically invisible and were transporting themselves to wherever they wished. Christ, the divine Rabbi of Galilee, taught us the secret in order to travel with the physical body within the astral plane. Let us see verses 24 to 32 of the 14th chapter of Matthew. But the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for the wind was contrary. And in the 4th watch of the night Jesus went unto them, walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, It is a spirit, and they cried out for fear. But straightway Jesus spake unto them, saying, Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me come unto thee on the water. And he said, Come. And when Peter was come down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand, and caught him, and said unto him, Zero, thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt? And when they were come into the ship, the wind ceased. This is the Gnostic secret in order to enter within the astral plane with the body of flesh and bones. Peter walked upon the waters because his physical body, by means of the force of faith, submerged itself within the astral plane. In the moment when he doubted, he went out of the astral plane, and he was close to sinking. The forces of the astral plane were holding Peter when he was upon the waters. Therefore, the astral plane was the force which was holding Christ when he was upon the waters. When we, the Gnostics, want to go to the astral plane with the body of flesh and bones, then we utilize the clue which the Master taught us. We proceed in the following way, in the precise moment when we awake from our natural sleep, without giving time to any analysis, doubt or vacillation, and filled with a very intense faith, we get up from our bed, we leave our room, then we float within the atmosphere. Only our faith is what holds us while performing this. Consequently, any analysis, doubt or vacillation damages the experiment. We can also take advantage of the instant in which we are getting sleepy, or simply, in the instant in which the mind is in a profound repose, as a tranquil lake. The physical body floats simply by means of faith. We abandon the force of gravity and the physical plane. So, we penetrate with our physical body into the astral plane, where the laws of levitation reign. Our disciples also know how to walk upon the waters in the same way as our Master did. Therefore, we are authentic Christians. The black magicians from the school of Sodom also utilized the procedure of the cloud in order to envelop themselves within it, and become invisible. They do not forget about mimicry with this, since if they are within a jungle, they have to make the cloud green. If they are within a room of white walls, they have to make the cloud white. In this way they will become invisible. We, the white magicians, utilize the power of our intimate in order to become invisible, yet, this power is delivered to us only when we have deserved it. The black magicians from the school of Sodom believe that with their black experiments they can penetrate into nirvana, yet, they are mistaken. They penetrate into the astral plane, but not into nirvana. We, the Gnostics, can visit nirvana even with our body of flesh and bones. Obviously, modern theosophists will laugh at us because they know not about these things. The unique thing that they have in their heads is an arsenal of theories. But in practicality, they are nothing else but eunuchs of understanding, morbid mystics, and fornicating sybarites. I still remember a theosophist who was a member of a black lodge. How terrified he flew away from a park in Cartagena, South America, when I told him that he was consciously working in the astral plane. This is the breaking point of negativity from theosophists. They horrify themselves simply with thinking in awakening the consciousness. They are only interested in having their heads filled with cockroaches and in living their life asleep. Nevertheless, they say that someday they think they will enter nirvana. Foolish boasters of wisdom know that only those who have already passed through the high initiation, only those who have given their last drop of blood for this humanity will enter into nirvana. All men long for the high initiation, yet they can only reach the altar of the high initiation with the virile member in the state of erection. Explanation in next chapter. Therefore, the Gnostic always lives heroically, always triumphant and always a rebel, like the heroes of Rabelais, who knew nothing of weakness. The Gnostics yearn for nirvana, but they know very well that they carry nirvana within their sexual glands. Thus, they want to self-realize it within themselves by means of courage. The black magicians were unfolding ancient parchments, and were astonished when reading the innumerable degrees which Beelzebub had, and how now, in a manner of speaking, he had betrayed them. Some of them were commenting on this case by saying, "Now we have nobody else but our chief Jav, the boss. If he abandons us, then we are lost." Afterwards, when Beelzebub passed through the 4 ordeals of earth, fire, water, and air, he visited Jav, his former chief, and he said to him, "I come to say farewell to you, because now I am no longer dependent on your government, for now I am disciple of the White Lodge." Jav then furiously answered, "Traitor! Miserable one! Renegade! You allowed yourself to be convinced by Samael Aun Weor. Yet, he does not have your degrees, neither mine as well. Be aware that you are walking on the bad path." Then, Beelzebub answered him in an energetic tone, "The one who is walking on the bad path is you. I follow Samael Aun Weor. I did not see the light, but since Samael has shown it to me, I will not leave this light anymore, and I follow Samael Aun Weor in the same way that all of his disciples follow him." Jav then said to him, "Damned! Damned! Damned! My damnation will follow you eternally." Yet Beelzebub answered him with a smile, "Your damnation does not enter me because I am protected by the White Lodge." After Beelzebub had spoken, Jav then turned himself against me, saying, "You are the one to whom I have to attack, because you are responsible for all of this." Subsequently, he attacked me with all of his sinister occult power, yet I easily conjured him, and I defeated him. Beelzebub kept healing the sick. However, the instant in which he had to ask for a physical body in order to climb up on the path of the initiation, approached with necessity. So, Beelzebub asked for a physical body. His petition was accepted, and he inscribed himself in the 9th karmic office. This is how he entered into our human evolution. The initiate, Garga Kichin, generously offered his cooperation in order for Beelzebub to take physical body within his home, yet, this was completely impossible due to health reasons of his wife. She could not endure the tremendous vibration of Beelzebub. However, the major brethren had foreseen everything very well. The Chela Beelzebub incarnated himself in France in a feminine body. Now Beelzebub is a beautiful girl in France who will overwhelm the world because of her sanctity, power, and wisdom. Her parents have a young and beautiful marriage in which only love and comprehension reigns because both are initiates. They are laborers, yet they enjoy a simple and beautiful life. Beelzebub was born with the body of a girl because the feminine body is indispensable for the development of feelings, tenderness, and love. Now, Beelzebub, already with physical body, can rapidly pass the 9 initiations of lesser mysteries, and finally he will unite himself with his intimate. Thus, he will convert himself into a master of major mysteries from the white fraternity. From the great sinners, the great virtuous are born. The sapience of sin wisdom is elaborated with the sapience of sin and the vertigo of the absolute. O defeated Magdala! Thy withered lips due to too many kisses also know how to love. Therefore, I love thee, fallen woman, I die for thee, no matter what they say. I like dancing and thy love. Alas! Woman, do not leave me, for I die for thee. Alas! Woman, do not leave me, for I only love thee. The forbidden fruit makes us gods. Thy delectable words of love and thy grave oaths are like the fire of the roses, and like those delectable moments which no one knows of. The most great angels were always devils from great Bacchanahas. They enjoyed the lips of love, they sung the song of songs. Red roses are better than white, because they have the sapience of sin and the vertigo of the absolute, and because they have wept a lot, a sweet Nazarene has forgiven them. Temptation is the mother of sin, and the pain of sin is the sapience. Christ loved she who had wept much, and said to her, Woman, I forgive thee, for thou hast loved much. The most divine gods are those who have been more human, the most divine gods are those who were devils. Chant. O Beelzebub, chant thy song, chant. O Beelzebub, a chant of love. Woman, thou art a rose of passion, thou hast 1,000 delectable names, yet thy true name is love. I want to fasten laurels to thy temples, I want to kiss thy lips with love. I want to tell thee rare things, I want to tell thee intimate things, I want to tell thee everything, within the perfumed room of mahogany. I want to tell thee everything in starry nights. Thou art the star of dawn, thou art the light of Obad. Thy breasts pour honey and venom, and the liquor of the female is a liquor of mandrake. It is a summit, an immensity, a fire. It is the ardent and adored flame, through which one enters into heaven. By Samael Aun Weor.